Welcome back to Professional Amateurs Podcast. I'm your host, Zach Elder. Today, I have a fantastic interview for any of our listeners who are into leadership, entrepreneurship, or building better relationships. My guest is Brian Slipka. Brian Slipka is the founder and serves as the leader of the True North family of companies. True North is a holding company spanning across logistics, manufacturing, sports, entertainment, and financial services. Throughout his career, Brian started investing in all kinds of independent operating companies, eventually forming the framework of what is today True North family of companies. Today, over 20 independently owned small businesses has revenues over $250 million. Brian's experience includes building startups, buying existing businesses, selling, exiting businesses, and angel investments in numerous types of companies, all as a partner or investor, serving on the boards. He's also now a published author with his release of his book, Winsome, in 2024. He's also a respected voice in the leadership community, known for his vulnerable and transparent leadership style. Brian and his wife, Megan, founded the Slipka Foundation, now the True North Family Foundation, a public 501c3 nonprofit committed to character and leadership community stewardship, where they've endowed scholarships, community projects, and all kinds of other stuff. Brian serves on the boards of trustees for a bunch of national ministries. He's well known for his faith-based leadership style, and that's a huge piece of who he is. This was just a fantastic interview, guys. You're going to love this. I took a full page of notes from this, right? And people who know me know that, I'm not a note taker sometimes, but when I get in the mode and there's all these things to pull away from this, I'm frantically jotting down things. Brian's somebody that I think that we can all learn a lot from, because there's these people, these leaders they kind of exist outside of this different sphere of the rest of us. We think that they're some kind of different person, but Brian really is a truly self-made man. He comes from the same background as the rest of us. He went to school here in Minnesota. He grew up here. He's a Midwestern guy. He really has a relatable story about being, stacking days and compounding. And this interview, I think, is going to be a really good lesson in leadership for anybody who has aspirations of building something great. So with that, enjoy. Okay, here we go. Brian, thanks for joining me.
Hey, Zach, great to be with you and great to be a part of this.
Yeah. So we just heard the intro, we heard the bio, and so we have kind of an idea of who you are, Brian. But I'd love to start kind of like, let's dive into True North a little bit, and I want to kind of go back to the beginning and build towards today. I think we're probably gonna talk a lot about people, interpersonal relationships, and I think in order to paint that picture, I think we need to really get a good understanding of who Brian Slipka is and where he comes from, and how you kind of ended up here where you are today with the True North family, being a published author, being kind of a voice in the leadership community in the business world, especially here in the Midwest. I think that we have these huge corporations that are headquartered here, but in some ways we're missing the people, the figureheads, the leaders, right? We have these famous sort of coastal elites that people think of when they think of big business people. And when I think of these Midwestern business leaders, I think of folks like yourself, the heartbeat of America, really. So let's go back to the beginning, and who's Brian Slipka? Where do you come from? How'd you end up here?
Yeah, well, first off, it's just great to be on this. I love being able to. Hopefully, my hope and prayer is that this can be a platform for others to learn from and to grow from my story, which is a remarkably unremarkable story, right? But I think it's something that a lot of people can relate to, and I think that's the real lesson that folks can take from it. But my story really begins. Was a blue collar. My family upper middle class, but generally speaking, my dad was a white collar leader of a small business, but it was a blue collar business. And so I like to joke I'm a blue collar kid from Burnsville, right? Probably not totally accurate, right? I mean, my dad oftentimes wore a suit to work and would be dressed up nice and going to important business meetings, but when I'd go to his office, it would be with a bunch of blue collar folks around him, and so that was sort of the ethos that I grew up around. But grew up in the suburb of the Twin Cities, Burnsville, and went to the University of Minnesota Carlson School. Got a great business degree. I was one of those guys, though, that was really active in high school. I had multiple jobs, I built computers. I worked at a small little grain trading company, and then I woke up really early to do this like reporting job, which really helped me learn a lot of disciplines and skills. I was at the job by 5 a.m. before school started in high school, and worked a couple of hours, and that kind of sort of set the tone for my life. Really changed kind of my focus and my intensity. I played sports, went to the Carlson School, continued to work. I actually sold door to door in college to help pay my way through college. Allowed me to buy rental properties at a young age, and so like my story really is just a great family upbringing. But really, it was one of those things where had a bias for action, and I was sort of willing to fail and make aggressive mistakes. And if you had to look at kind of the overarching theme of my career, it's probably those attributes.
Yeah. It's funny. I meet a lot of people, a lot of successful people, a lot of business leaders, a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of small business owners, medium business owners. You have it. The door-to-door sales seems to be a common thread. Somebody who's been through going to door to door, trying to sell something that, they may not have a ton of skin in the game about solar or window cleaning or whatever it might be. Right. But the hustle, the action, the resilience of being told no and having the door slammed in your face like 50 times and being able to continue plugging forward. I think that you're either born with that or it builds that muscle of that perseverance that it takes to be successful.
Absolutely. It's a funny story about that. And I've actually talked about this in other venues and forums and podcasts, but I sold door to door, and I was sent to the hospital. I got in a car accident. I was in the hospital for a few days, really bad concussion, broken ribs, that sort of thing. That was an event, a life-changing event in many ways. Also, I had guns pointed at me. I mean, I was in the middle of Leavenworth County, Kansas, one summer, and home of the federal penitentiary, the state penitentiary, the county penitentiary, the military pen. I had about every kind of prison that you could known to man within like 5 miles. And so certainly you can imagine why, you get in the rural communities and somebody shows up at your door, you're a little apprehensive. So I learned to empathize with the plight of people who might even be thinking I'm a bad guy, kind of thing, right? Of course, when they saw a young college kid with a golf shirt on and like a badge on him, he's probably not a bad guy, but it was definitely an experience, right? And so you just learn that's the bias for action, be willing to fail, make aggressive mistakes, sort of mantra that I think sort of speaks throughout my career and my life. Come back to your question around True North, though. I mean, so I had a good career in business, enterprise business, enterprise technology, software, and then finance. Most of it in finance, where I was financing a lot of technology projects around the country, leadership roles in that space, and was able to earn a lot of money and all that good stuff, but felt really hollow and empty. My dad died of cancer in 2013. And when he was on his deathbed, in hospice, I had a really frank conversation with him, and he really confronted me because I was complaining about something at work, and here he was dying and in hospice, and he just really confronted me. He's like, Brian, what you got to figure it out. I'm going to be gone here in a little bit while. You got to figure out what on earth are you chasing, and that sort of set in motion. I mean, that stuck with me. I mean, really stuck with me, and deeply kind of struck to my core of what my purpose on earth here is, and so what it began as a manifestation of me getting out of my comfort zone again, just like selling door to door, and starting and going off on my own. Ultimately, leaving a 7-figure job to pursue my own business path. And so it was leap of faith. Certainly, faith is definitely a big part of my story. It's a huge part of my story. It's everything to my story. But that leap of faith really is what allowed True North to get off the ground. By that time, I had already had 5 or 6 businesses that I owned, but I was not able to operate daily because I had my leadership roles at the day job. And so that's how the story really began, and that was really in 2018 where that really took flight, and then the last 7 years has been just a complete whirlwind, highest to highs, lowest to lows, everything in between. and just grateful to be part of the journey every day. And it's one of those things we get to, we don't have to, right? And even when in the darkest days, the lowest of the lows, I still maintain that perspective. I get to go do this. I don't have to. And I think that's another key element of what makes True North True North.
Yeah, I think one of my favorite things about the holdco style of business is how it manifests abundance, right? It's not, you're not playing a zero sum game. Like, there are some businesses that you throw your hat in the ring and you've got this red ocean and you're trying to compete, for some finite resource or some finite customer base or whatever. But, an organization like True North, you can build momentum through abundance, right? Success begets more success. You're creating opportunities for other people and you benefit because of your personal relationship skills, right? Your advice, your strategy, your operating ability, right? And you can do that at a larger and larger scale the more reps you get, and each success you have feeds the companies that you already owned, because of the improvements in process and your own experience and so on. I think that's really great. One thing I didn't realize is how fast 2018 is really the genesis of True North as we know it today. I did not realize that. I had this sort of assumption that this is maybe a 20-year thing. I suppose you mentioned that you had already started investing in businesses when you were working the day job, so that those were the seeds of what became True North. At least that's what the website said.
It was a
right?
25-year overnight success, right?
Yes, classic, right?
I love. I'm glad you brought that up. Couple of things back to the red and blue ocean too. First off, it had been a building blocks since I graduated from college in '99, 2000. I mean, it was a lot of grind, toil, getting my life in order to be able in a position to step out of a 7-figure income role and in a corporate realm to do my own thing, right? I'd like to think that it takes a lot of courage and all that sort of thing, and give myself all sorts of credit. But at the end of the day, I mean, I've been moving towards that since my dad passed in 2013. Now, True North really got its start in 2014. And we'd slowly built up a portfolio of businesses. I just still had a day job, right? And so really the origins of True North date back to 2014 from the wake of my dad's passing, me being inclined and motivated, inspired to do something, me yoking myself with a couple of operating partners that were able to run businesses. So I would go help buy the business and then they would run them, right? And we were able to do that for a while until it just got to be so complex and significant that I had to really quit the day job, so to speak, to run the businesses. I think that's a lesson learned too. I mean, this wasn't a cold turkey, complete blind leap of faith. This was a calculated leap of faith. And so that's the 25-year overnight success, right? But once I did leave the day job and committed full time to the True North family of companies, that is when people started to notice, right? And that's how a lot of people's stories are, though. I mean, I'm sure with a lot of you listeners that are listening to Zach's podcast here, I mean, the one thing I would take away is that your daily grind reflects your success or failures that maybe may come or go really quickly, right? Some of my biggest failures, were years in the making, right? And yet it appears that they just happened overnight, right? Well, yeah. Actually, there were years in the making with me making bad decisions, right? I mean, if I'm being honest with myself, right? And that's by the way, that's the other thing about True North. We're very vulnerable, right? I mean, I'm a big believer that I'm not a fan of know-it-alls, because none of us know it all. And if you do know it all, that means you're at the peak of your existence, right? Because you know it all, right? I'm definitely green and growing. I don't know it all. I make mistakes every day. I'm very fallible. And I don't pretend to know it all, because I don't. And I'm a learn by doing kind of guy. And so I've had a lot of successes and a lot of failures. One thing I will tell you, I think I've been around the track more at my age than most people most people's whole lives. I've just the different cycles I've seen relationally with people, with deals, businesses, business environments, large, small, everything in between. And so I think that all sort of amalgamates itself into what is True North, and to really my leadership and my I guess my successes and failures.
Yeah, that really resonates with me. In my career, both as a coach and as a business person, that's something that tend to speak on pretty frequently is self honesty, rigorous honesty with yourself. You should never lie, but most of all, you should never lie to yourself, because the real problem with lying to yourself is you're probably going to believe it, right?
Yes.
Because it's you. Why wouldn't you? Right? Yeah. I don't know. He's
Well,
probably not
and
full of it.
specifically, the lying to yourself is a form of self sabotage. You're actually sabotaging your own ability to move on and be successful in life. It's the illusion of control.
Yes.
You rationalize certain behaviors about yourself, and then you fast forward, and then you wonder why certain things go wrong or don't go the certain way. If we're honest with ourselves, we should never be completely surprised by how things play out. And I say that because in a very vulnerable manner, because some of my best successes, I'm not really surprised. But then also some of my biggest weaknesses and frankly failures, even some of the ones that are kind of outside my control in the business sense, were years in the making by some of my other bad decisions, right? And so this notion of vulnerability, no matter who you are, no matter who you are, husband, wife, father, son, daughter, mother, no matter what role in life that any of us play, if we're honest with ourselves, sober reflection of self is a key criteria for being able to live a full life and being at peace, that transcends circumstances, right? And so that's a big part of True North as well.
Absolutely. And in addition to that too, the one of the best leadership things you can do is to be transparent with your people, whoever you lead, whoever you expect to lead. You need to be honest about your self-honesty with others as well, right? Because people think they're taking a step when they go and they start to take steps towards reflecting, right? But if they 100% keep that to themselves, then it's very difficult to build trust with the people that you're trying to lead. People have this defense mechanism. They think that people will only follow a leader that looks like they always have the answer and they never make a mistake. And if I show that I have these like cracks, then people won't follow me anymore. But the truth is, they will trust you more because they can see that you are taking steps for improvement, taking steps in the right direction. That's a big thing with coaching in sports. You're going to try things with your practice design, with training implementation and things like that. It might not work. And coaches think they have to be this authority figure, and they will not admit to their athletes that they made a mistake. The best thing that you can do is be like open with that vulnerability and that transparency and say, hey, we're going to try this. Here's what I think it's going to do. Here's the outcome I expect. Here's how we know it's going to work or it's not going to work. And if it doesn't work, we will do something else, right? And then when it isn't working, you have the courage to go like, my bad, like.
Well, and the reflection of self. I mean, I've had an opportunity to spend time around some key, incredible sports leaders and coaches, particularly coaches, people like Tony Dungy, PJ Fleck, John Gordon, who speaks to a lot of these coaches, Dave Canales, it goes on and on and on. Like a lot of Sean McVay. I mean, these folks have spoken a lot of truth into my life and have helped me understand what you just said, Zach, is so paramount, so true. I mean, vulnerability, KOC. I mean, Kevin O'Connell of the Vikings. I mean, I think one of the reasons why he is so successful at such a young age is because he uniquely can be transparent and vulnerable and real and honest with people, whether they're 15, like I've seen him interact with his son, who's even younger than that, all the way to the elders like Bud Grant when Bud Grant was still alive, when Kevin first arrived with the Vikings. Bud Grant, he earned Bud Grant's respect. I mean, and everybody in between. And that's what makes him a unique leader. And it's because of this honesty with himself and self-reflection of self. Doesn't mean he's lacks confidence. Quite the contrary. And it's like the C.S. Lewis quote. I think it is like, it's not that you think less of yourself. You just think about yourself less.
Mm-hmm.
And I
Mm-hmm.
think that focus is a common characteristics in a lot of the leaders. And the reason you can think about yourself less is because you are so vulnerable and honest about yourself to yourself. I mean,
Yeah.
this is deep stuff. If people really want to dive into relational success, I love talking about it because it's paramount for business success too. I mean, it's like this, whether it be the salesperson that is wondering why they aren't having success or knocking on all these doors and they're having success. Well, did you think about certain things you're doing? Are you being honest with yourself? Well, I'm checking all the boxes, coach. I'm checking all the boxes, Brian. Like, okay, but like you're missing some bigger picture things because you aren't being honest with yourself, right? As
Mm-hmm.
an example, all the way to like a general manager who is find themselves making excuses from the very beginning on why they aren't having success, and then they wonder why they never have success, right? Well, it starts with the thought control and how they're viewing the world, right? So it doesn't deny reality, but it accepts where they're at and what they can do to make the situation better. And those things
Right.
are paramount for the lifelong learner, lifelong success.
Yeah. In the worst, the worst version of breaking this rule is the people who will convince themselves that they are having success. You see that all the time. People will be like, well, this is,
Guilty. Guilty.
yeah, I think we all are sometimes, right? I mean, that's the thing, by the way, right? Like the only reason that Brian and me and anybody else can speak on this stuff is because we've broken these rules countless times ourselves, right? We're human, we're fallible. We discover these things through failure. So I think that's really important. I wanna ask you this. You talked about how you came from, your dad was a business leader of a blue collar business, and I think this is going to be a really good segue to getting into your book. Your portfolio businesses includes a lot of what I would call blue collar or middle America type businesses, right? You have trucking companies and manufacturing businesses and things where my instincts tell me, and please correct me if I'm wrong about this, but my cousin's a trucker, and my instincts tell me that they would be very wary of the suits, right? The quote unquote the suits coming in and talking about EBITDA and their businesses and like all right, these guys they're going to come in and they're going to make everything worse. They're just going to all they care about is money, et cetera, et cetera. What when you get into these things, you get into these relationships and you are trying to come in as an operator and you're looking to help improve these businesses and make everybody's lives better through business. How do you build the trust that's needed with these folks and not make them feel like you're just some suit with deep pockets coming in to strip them for parts and flip it to the next private equity firm?
Boy, it's a great question, and boy, it's something I'm living with every day. And I'll be the first to admit from the very beginning of answering your question that I don't have it all figured out. I mean, in fact, if you were to have asked me that question 3 years ago, I would have thought I had it figured out. And what the last few years has revealed is I still don't. So I wanna just level set with everybody that it's a work in process and progress, right? But what I will tell you, let me point to some of the areas where we've found greatest success. And I think this sort of speaks to your question. Where we have found the greatest success is where I have been able to come alongside folks. And yes, I'm the guy in the sport coat or suit coming in to this blue collar environment where they understand our mission and our vision and values enough and are around me enough to see that my intent is to let their light shine personally, right? And then yes, the business needs to be successful. And where I've failed is where I have been more the mindset of like that they're just over there, and we just got to get them to perform, and black marks on a white sheet of paper, performance, and that's where the fallibility demands comes in. Certainly, obviously chasing the wrong things. Sometimes it's a necessity because you have hurdles you have to hit, all that stuff. So, but again, like we just talked about, I could rationalize that till I'm blue in the face. But the brutal truth is then how does that make my team feel, right? And so to answer your question, really, I think we don't have it all figured out. I think we do it better than most. right? And our
Mm-hmm.
sincerity and our authenticity and who we are is definitely more apparent than a traditional private equity, right? Because we are not private equity; we're a holding company. We do not
Mm-hmm.
have a plan to sell. It's not that we won't sell a business, but we have no plans to ever sell a business we get involved with or build or buy or whatever. And so it's a different fundamental approach. We don't chase profits as our number one priority. I mean, which frankly has sometimes been our undoing, right? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
because if we had, we probably would have made more decisions. We do make decisions based on keeping our teams together, keeping, we do operate more like a family, and we're overt about that. We aren't just a team; we're a family. And I was at corporate America, and I remember them talking about the distinction between family and team, and that they're like, "Hey, we're a team. That means you gotta produce, you gotta perform, and otherwise you're gonna get cut because it's a team."
Yeah. Yeah.
And I had a hard time reconciling that because relationships when I saw my dad on his deathbed, relationships trump the successes or failures of whether the team won or lost. What was remembered and what people cared about the most at the end of their lives was their the relationships and the family dynamic part of being a team. And so I overtly declare True North's a family of companies, right? And
Yeah.
that means there's dysfunction. I mean, like I know our family, both the direct and our immediate and extended family, we don't bat 1,000 at all. I mean, we aren't even close, right? And I would think most probably aren't, right? But we are family. We love each other. We care about each other, and I think that's what shines through the good and the bad dynamics. But people don't care how much you know unless they know how much you care, and that's really the best way to answer your question.
Yeah. Yeah. I think for those of us who have some like deep-seated ambition and you study business as a subject, you study the great companies, the great leaders, it's very hard to reconcile the desire to live a great life and the desire to build something exceptional, because it seems like you see these people in the world, these titans, the famous, they built something exceptional, but at great personal cost many times, right? And that's one of my favorite people to read about is Michael Dell, because he's one of the very few who seems like he kind of was able to pull both off, and it's just exceedingly rare, and the people who are doing both oftentimes don't have this public persona. You kind of they're rich and anonymous, or they're successful and anonymous. You've never heard of the guy down the street who owns 25 plus companies, and everybody really respects him, and he's living this great life, takes care of his family, so on. And it's a very difficult balance to strike. It's and I'm still a little bit young yet, right? So I'm figuring it out, but I'm getting to the age where maybe I feel like I should probably get it together one way or another, but maybe that's neither here nor there.
Well, I mean, I will tell you, your generation, which is not that much younger than mine. I have such excitement for anybody who's under 40, because I just think that you guys are all uniquely positioned to do unbelievable things in this society, in this world. Unfortunately, there's some headwinds with just the deterioration of frankly, of work ethic, work effort, desire to work and toil.
Mm-hmm.
There's a degradation and deterioration at times in certain pockets of there's not the understanding that to get something that is worth getting for, it always comes at a price. And I think that is indisputable truth in all circumstances of life. And so nothing should come easy. If something comes easy, then don't be surprised when that falters at some point in your life, right? Whether it be a freebie that you're getting or a handout, so to speak. I mean, that always comes at a price, right? And frankly, I mean, for those that strive and toil and overcome, their victory is so much more fulfilling and real. And but our society doesn't really promote that part of the reality of our existence. And so I think that's the opportunity, though, for the the generation that's under 40, because boy, oh boy, you guys are smart. You guys are instinctive. Obviously the technology elements, all that stuff. I mean, there's a lot, you guys got a lot going for you. So anyway, I'm excited about the future of our society. If that remnant can really step up and lead well, I think there's more opportunity than ever for leadership.
Yeah, I hope I agree. Yeah. So let's talk about the book, because I think that's a really good point to make, and probably somewhere along the line, where you probably inspired you to put pen to paper and write the book. So we'll do a little show and tell, a little plug here. So Brian has a book. It's titled Winsome. I think it came out last year, 2 years ago. It's a couple years old now, I believe, or a year old maybe. It was actually recommended to me by one of my athletes that I work with, that I train. So that's pretty cool, because usually it goes the other direction, right? And so that was kind of a neat thing for me. It's titled Winsome, 5 Proven Life Strategies to Win in Relationships. And I read it, I enjoyed it, and I would love to kind of dive into kind of the background of how this framework started to take shape for you. Because we have a lot of sort of vague ideas, as leaders, of like, you have these gut feelings. We talked about being vulnerable and transparent, and having these values, but boiling it down to a framework that can be applied to daily life is something that's pretty hard. It takes time, takes reps. So, how did that kind of take shape for you?
Well, I mean, a couple of elements. First off, the protagonist in the book, Sam, is very successful. The book's cover probably gives away a little bit. He's a successful baseball player in this case, in this fable, and I'm a mild version of Sam. And frankly, that's how the book even came to be. Is I just felt, as I was sanctifying kind of the process of my living and trying to become a better person every day, and reflective of the good and the bad of successes and failures and relationships in life. And then also the successes in business that I'd had or not had. I sort of started to distill down this framework that became organic. It was organic, but then it became a very natural and logical path to ultimately creating this fable. And so the fable is about this protagonist, baseball player. He just has some relational strife in his life, and you guys will have to read the book. It's really good. It's easy. It's 140 pages, but he's got some relational strife in his life, and the manner in which he handles issues, right? He either will, even though, when you read the book, you'll know what I'm saying, but he wants to do the right thing. He so desperately wants to do the right thing. So think of all of us and all the listeners here, and Zach, all your folks that you coach, right? I mean, they want to do the right thing. You want to do the right thing. I want to do the right thing. In almost all areas of life, but yet when push comes to shove, through external circumstances or certain things that don't go our way, we become irritable, or we make bad decisions, or we're just hungry or angry or tired or whatever, right? I mean, there's all sorts of circumstances that come in that impact our ability and impair our ability to really express ourselves the right way. So think of just a simple example to help people understand what I'm saying. So think about like when you go to like an extended family gathering, and you want to express something to somebody, or maybe it's a friend, just here hanging out with some friends, and you or maybe it's somebody that you want to ask out on a date. I mean, I don't know. It could be all sorts of life circumstances, and you're going over there, and you just aren't able to express yourself the way that you want to. Okay, so we all can relate to those experiences. That's kind of what I'm talking about here from a relational element, right? And so the book just goes through how Sam learns the hard way through very, very public humiliation and bad decisions that he's making on how to revamp his brain a bit, and this 5-tool framework that his clubby, the baseball clubby mentor, comes alongside him and really helps him understand how to handle and approach life differently. And so that's kind of a summary, Zach. I don't know if you want me to go into more detail, but it's pretty powerful. And I've gotten some unbelievable feedback. I mean, what's crazy about how you said how you learned about the book. I just want to tell you. I mean, the people that are reading the book the most are probably folks in that 15 to 30 age range, because I think it resonates with them when they're trying to develop relationships the right way. And I think it's just really powerful. And I really hope and pray that people through all walks of life, all circumstances can get something out of it.
Yeah, and something that I think would resonate with just about anybody is how, the character in the book, Sam, he struggles maybe the most with the people who are closest to him. The relationships he cares the most about are the ones that he feels like he's failing the most. And I think we all as humans have this tendency to have that happen because on some level you have a feeling like, well, they're not going anywhere, right? And when you're tired and you're irritable and you're frustrated about something, you're more likely to lash out, and because you feel like you have this, you don't consciously think this, but on some level you feel like you have this longer runway, to do wrong by them. But then over time, these relationships get strained. And this is, I think, especially amongst like marriages, the parent, I don't have any kids of my own, but the parent, I have parents, and so the parent child relationship, these things, it's like, it's so easy to mail it in on some of those. Cause you're like, they're right here, I don't know, whatever. Right.
No,
He's my son. I love him. Right. He
yeah.
knows that. He knows I love him, but does he feel it?
Yes, I mean, so this phrase that I've used across all the businesses, and I got it from some really powerful mentors of mine. We deceive ourselves by the smallness of our compromises. We deceive ourselves by the smallness of our compromises. And so, what you're describing, Zach, is a great example of that. Yeah, where the people you love the most are the ones you're the most irritable with, and are the ones that you lash out on inappropriately for no reason, or maybe for a reason, but it's not a good reason, right? Um, and I think the manifestation of those elements is again another reason why I felt called to write the book. I mean, listen, I mean, I don't think I was nowhere near Sam in the book as how I expressed Sam, but I'm a mild version of Sam, the protagonist. And it's like, okay, what can I do to make the situation better? And this 5-tool framework, just real quickly for those listening to this, I mean, basically think of the baseball analogy, right? The first step you got to do is grab your bat, right? You just got to grab your bat. And that really in life, that's about creating like a win-win situation and having the mindset around a win-win, not like win-lose. Like as long as I win, I don't care if everybody else loses. And by the way, our instinctive nature is to have the win-lose scenario. Okay. So when you grab your bat, you're basically making a distinctive, overt, intentional effort to reframe that. Okay. Win-win, win-win. Okay. Win-win. Step two, you're on the on deck circle. That's where you're kind of looking at the situation. You're controlling you're identifying how you can control the controllables. What can I control in this situation? What can I not control? And that's a real powerful element of life. Whether you're an athlete, whether you're whether you're having some relationship friction, no matter what role you're in, work, business, all that stuff, dating, all that, right? Marriage. And then step three is like you're actually at bat. Okay. Now that this is like it's live. It's live. Like you're at bat. Like this is where the moment counts. Like this is you are at bat. The pitch is coming at you. What are you going to do? And it's all about assessing and responding and being in a good frame of reference to assess and respond the right way. How many times I'm talking about myself here? Have we been at bat and we assess, but then we respond the wrong way? Okay. Or we don't assess and we respond the wrong way. And so if you have 1 and 2 properly framed, you're going to assess and respond the right way. And so that's really the team approach, right? And then you can, another thing about just the analogy of being at bat is you step out of the batter's box. Sometimes you have to regrip. I'm a baseball player, so like that relates to me. And then you get back in there and you're ready to face the next pitch, right? And so that's step 3. And then really the step 4 is you put the ball in play, runs batted in. At the end of the day, you're going to be measured by the runs batted in. Okay, did you get a runner? By the way, think about that. It's not just your home run or how many runs you scored, or just your average. Runs batted in. Runs batted in is a statistic that shows how much did you incrementally help the team and drive drive performance of others. Okay, drive in runs. And so that's what I loved about that step 4 is because it's not about did I hit a home run. I mean, it might be a sacrifice to drive in a run. You may have to get an out. You may have to die to self, so to speak. That's
Mm-hmm.
a strong way of saying it, but in order to drive the run in, and so that's the sacrifice and commitment, RBIs, and then number 5 is okay, you drive the run in, and then it's just getting back in the batting cage, reflection and growth. And you and I spoke a lot about that earlier, right? Is just self-assessing and be honest with yourself. And so that's really the 5 tool framework that I just so it's deeply personal for me. It's profoundly impactful for me. Now application, I'm still not perfect though. I mean, I wish I could say I did this all the time. I mean, I'm far from it. But the book really speaks to that. And what's cool about the book too is I've kind of set up Sam for a subsequent book 2, and I'm already thinking about what that could look like, and it'll be mutually exclusive. You won't have to read book 1 to read book 2, but I can see how Sam's evolution here on Earth, materializes, and what life after baseball looks like for him, and what that means for him and his family, and his relationships, and also just for himself. And so I'm really excited to be able to come out with that at some time.
Yeah, I caught that towards the end. I was like, I think we might get a sequel. I caught there's a little foreshadowing there. I appreciated that. Um, why baseball? Why choose this framework in a way to tell this, to describe this concept, tell this story? Why a ball player? There's so many self-helpy business books in the world. And given your day to day, it probably would have been very easy to write a book that was really just talking specifically about business leadership, right? And if your goal was book sales, which I'm guessing it really wasn't, but it probably would have sold really well. You get some PR firm to give it the right airport bookstore title, and now you're a New York Times best-selling author. Cool, go Brian, right? So why baseball?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just because again it was a deeply personal, cathartic sort of process for me, and so baseball just became the natural way to look at it. I'm a big baseball fan. I own a minor league baseball team with a good friend of mine, and so baseball is just a big part of my life, and I do believe baseball is analogous to life. It's a long game, right? It's a long season. One game doesn't define you. One at bat doesn't define you. Um, and then the nature of the 5 tool framework about how the goal is really to get in runs for the team. And you can be an unbelievable individual performer, but that still doesn't mean your team's going to be successful. And I think that's just very analogous to life. Unlike any other sport. I think the next closest sport is probably like a lacrosse or a hockey or a football, because it's such a team sport, right? But
Mm-hmm.
but um, but baseball is so analogous to life because you have to really rely on others for success, at different stages and in different ways, and then just the manner in which you score runs, the manner in which you have to be patient, but then also you have to be urgent, the manner in which you have to accelerate but then decelerate. I mean, the manner in which you have to make split second decisions, and the impulsive reflexes with it being a very patient and sometimes some would call slow game, right? I mean, it's just such a balance of how life is, right? So that's why baseball just made so much sense to me, even if it doesn't for others. And I didn't write it to sell a ton of books, although we were successful. I mean, it's last summer we were on the. I mean, it was crazy how we were on. We hit some top lists for pretty much all summer, and while it's slowed, I mean, since then. But what's cool about it is like the readership around the country. How I get these letters, I get these emails, messages from people that I don't even know saying, "Hey, I read your book, and it really impacted me for where I'm at in my life relationally right now." And because it's an easy read, I think it's really gravitated towards that younger reader, or listener, because we have it on audio as well. And I just think it resonates, and hopefully everybody can listen or read it.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And that's one of the beauties of baseball. It's one of the reasons why I loved playing it, why I love coaching it, why I like it's the beautiful game, because it's a game of life. And I think I think framing, even if it wasn't a baseball player, I think framing this character as an athlete is a really, really good choice, because in my life experience, athletes who are hyper competitive have a tendency to struggle with this kind of stuff the most, because you have this chunk of your life where you're trying to win everything. I'm trying to win. I'm trying to win. I'm trying to win. And in sports, if you win, that means somebody loses, right? And baseball is kind of a proxy for the fact that you can sacrifice for the team and still your team can win, right? And that's really important. That's a really important piece of this analogy. But so many former athletes struggle because they go into these careers or these personal relationships, and they don't have a good instinct of creating win-wins. That's hard for them to wrap their head around the fact that, like, they can win, I can win, we can both win, because of the mindset they've spent so long in. I haven't had a chance to use this yet, but I had a thought recently about an interview question. Now, I think a good interview question for a potential candidate would be, you hit a game-winning home run, walk-off home run. Would you rather do it at home or on the road? And I think that the answer to that question might be somewhat revealing about whether or not that person seeks out conflict for no good reason, right? Like, you hit the home run either way, your team wins either way. Do you want to celebrate with your fans, or do you want to shut up the opposing fans?
Oh, that's
right. And your instincts, I think, about that question will reveal, like, am I going to, like, pick fights for, yeah, I'm just going to seek out conflict so I feel like I won.
Yeah,
right?
I love where you're going with this. Like, so even like you watch like The Last Dance, and you look at Michael Jordan's competitiveness. Like, he had to kind of find somebody to almost be the antagonist, like to be the enemy, right? And so a lot of people, I think, just what you're describing in sport, the competitiveness of people, win lose, right? And I think there's a healthiness to that. I mean, God created all of us for a lot of reasons, right? But there's a healthiness to that competition, right? Playing to win, and there's nothing wrong with that. In fact, there's days where I wish I was more competitive, right? And I'm a pretty competitive guy. But what I've also learned is the true fulfillment, everlasting sort of joy that just defies circumstances, can really only be had based on other elements, and it's really having more of the winsome mindset. And that's why I call the book Winsome, by the way. Is it's win some. It's not win all. It's not win none. It's not win or lose. It's win some. And then, of course, the definition of the word winsome is really effectively being able to come alongside people and get along with others, and achieve the objective in front of you despite the circumstances. And so that's why I just thought the title is so appropriate for the manifestation of Sam's evolution of his how he thinks and how he works and interacts with other people relationally. And so again, it's something we all can take away and learn a lot from. And I love that concept. I mean, I love your question around that, because where would you rather hit the home run? That's very revealing in more than just sports, and more more than just how they view competition, right? I mean, it's there's probably a deeper purpose behind all those questions too that you could continue to dig into.
Yeah, and I think winning is this sort of nebulous concept, right? As by the way, the word winsome, not a word that you hear a lot of people use. I had this vague awareness of what it meant. I started reading the book, and it kind of makes a reference to that in the book. And I was like, I think I know what that means, but I had to look it up. I was like, oh, charming, good with people, good at getting along with a variety of different people, okay, that makes sense. This is adding up. I get the, is that a word that was something that you actually use in your daily life, or did you stumble upon that and did it spark something? And this is kind of a tangent here, but
truth be told, it got brought up in a few business conversations. A few of the business folks that if they're listening, then they know who they are. But I found myself starting to use the word, and I think one of the business folks I was having lunch or breakfast with said, that's a book title, man, Winsome. And I took their lead, and that it became the title. But it is. I mean, the actual definition is like attractive or appealing in appearance and character. Okay, so that's the actual like actual definition by whomever, whatever, the dictionary. But what that really means is coming alongside, right? You're attractive and you're appealing in appearance and character, right? I mean, like, yeah, how are you being winsome? Not handsome, but like winsome, and
Yeah.
coming alongside. And so I think like Sam, again, back to just Sam wasn't winsome. I mean, he wasn't appealing to people. I mean, his team and his teammates weren't very attracted to him at that point. His son wasn't, not because of the attraction of talent or baseball or how he was handling, but more the character. Like his son really didn't like his character, and so
Hmm.
so like I just thought it's just so appropriate, and we're all on a journey too. I mean, so like Sam has not arrived. I've not arrived. You haven't arrived. I mean, and I think just the reminder relationally. And by the way, this helps people in sports. I mean, some of the folks I have the greatest respect for, like a Tony Dungy. Tony, Tony is winsome. He comes across in a very wise. He's a wise soul, wise man. Been super successful, super competitive though, right? But
Hmm.
he sees the win lose element as being far less important than the win some or win win sort of mindset. And he knows that if you build better, in his case as a coach, he knew that if he built better men, character wise, he'd have a better football team.
Yeah.
And I think you see PJ Fleck. I mean, good friend of mine. I mean, PJ does such a great job. University of Minnesota football coach. Kevin O'Connell, same thing. The Minnesota Vikings. I mean, these guys are so committed to building better people in their job, that they know that if they do that the right way, they'll have better success on the football field with wins and losses. It's not just the X's and O's. And I think that in business, with the lessons I've learned, when I focus on the X's and O's, I shouldn't be surprised when I lose.
Mm.
When I focus on the people and the core, over time, might not be overnight, but over time, I win every time. So like,
Yeah.
I mean, that's what's crazy. Think about that for a second. So like back to the whole private equity versus not at True North. I mean, when I focus on the black marks on a white sheet of paper, I mean, I just have not been successful. I mean, and I think the longer I've done this, the more I start to realize like I just got to focus on the people and focus on the culture and focus on the elements of what creates our desire for success, and ultimately we will be successful. Not that you avoid or don't care about the wins or losses or the data or the KPIs or the balance sheet or the income statement. Of course you do, because there's no business if you don't. Just like Kevin O'Connell won't have a job if he loses, or PJ
Yeah.
Fleck or whoever. But you know that at your core you got to build better people, and that's what it's all about.
Yeah. Yeah. You have to have the playbook, right? So if somebody out there is listening to this and your story, your career, your business, your perspective inspires them, and they think that they want to pursue a career that looks something like yours, what would a 21-year-old who's starting to finish up college, or I mean, maybe even younger, what would somebody who wants to set themselves on the path that looks like this from a quality of life, a financial success standpoint, owning a minor league baseball team, and like cool, right? So what where should they start? What steps do you take over the next 5 years, 10 years to like make sure you put yourself on the path to build something that can create abundance like this, create a career like this?
Well, I mean, I think the back to the 25-year overnight success kind of thing. I think the one danger of like today's society and instant gratification, with where you can get everything quickly and you get data quickly, and what also makes me so incredibly encouraged by the younger generations, but also is scary, because I mean, a lot of this stuff, it was all building blocks, and it was a compounding effect, right? And so if you're in your 20s, I mean, what I did in my 20s was I just racked up a ton of experiences. I did a lot to earn, And that's important because you got to understand that's velocity. That's grease on skids. The skids can go faster when you can keep adding grease, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I think the failures of start talking about more the failures or the the parts that people don't really. I mean, it's not. You got to do it the hard way. I mean, I guess just simply put, you got to do it the hard way. There is no easy way. There is no fast track. There is no silver bullet. And I think understanding, accepting that is the first step. The second thing in your 20s, what I would say is just rack up as many experiences, full experiences, not just say check the box. I did that for a month. I got exposed to that. No, actually run around the track like 3 or 4 times in a certain industry or during a certain task, whether it be sales, whether it be finance, whether it be accounting, whether it be coaching, whether it be whatever the plight is, teaching, and being in front of people, not being in front of people, being a leader, being a follower, having lots of people, not very many people, one-on-one mentorship versus all of those meaningful at bats. That takes time. I mean, those are all 12 to 24-month exercises, if not lifelong exercises, right? So like getting as many of those compounding together starts to add up, because during those exercises you'll learn how to be more relational. You'll learn what we talked about here. The 5-tool framework will become more real to you. All of those things become more real. Okay, so that's the foundational elements. Now, practically speaking, like with business, especially for folks that aspire for like business business ownership, or being an entrepreneur or intrapreneur, or build versus buy a business versus build the business. I think I come back to step one. Just choose hard. It's not going to be easy. There is no shortcut. And this as soon as you accept that, you can begin to have a better understanding of what you need to do, and better clarity for what you need to do. But trying to find the shortcut is never the answer. And and I can speak to a lot of experiences with people that have and are still trying to find the shortcut, and then others that maybe did and realized, well, that's not the right way to do it, and then they just sunk their teeth into something for a few years, and then they found that it didn't take long. But so whatever you do, be excellent at it. Be excellent in the moment. If you're on a baseball team, I was talking to one of my players on the team, and I'm just like, just finish the season strong. We were talking about life after baseball, and I'm like, man, just finish the season strong. You're a person that whatever you put your mind to, you'll be successful. So put your head down, be successful, just finish strong, come up for air, and then let's talk. Right? I mean, it's like that kind of stuff, and be excellent in the moment. Some of the best, most successful people. If you look at some of the people that have been named CEO or named whatever, I got a good friend who's a CEO of a multi-billion-dollar publicly traded company, or president, I should say. And he has just been excellent in whatever role he's been in. He's never looked too far forward. He's never looked backwards. He just is right where he is. You bloom where you're planted. He's made the most of where he's planted. Last analogy, Dabo Sweeney, I had a chance to spend some time with a few times, but he won the Uncommon Award that our company sponsors, and he won the Uncommon Award a few years ago. And I was talking to him, and he told his story to me, but also to the whole group about this weed. He's a coach at Clemson, right? And he had his team going up and down the steps of the stadium, which is like an iconic stadium, right? And they got to the tops of the stadium where it's all cement, right? And it's an older stadium, and they get to the top, and there's this big weed. There's this big weed that's like huge, and it's like in the middle of summer. They're doing mini camps or whatever they do in the summer, and Dabo's like, why don't you pull that weed out? So he has a few players try to pull the weed out. They can't pull it out. Like it's a weed, right? I mean, and it's grew amongst cement, right? And Dabo's point was, no matter what they did, they couldn't pull that weed out. That weed had bloomed where it was planted. It couldn't choose its circumstances. It couldn't choose. I mean, let's go to this nice little pile of dirt. Let's go to this nice little whatever. That weed had no choice. It had to bloom where it was planted. And in this case, cement. None of the things that enrich it, right? But it had survived and thrived because it had no other choice. And so this notion of bloom where you're planted. Don't say wish woulda coulda shoulda or I need to or ought to. Just bloom where you're planted. Be excellent in the moment. I mean, that's the best counsel I could give people, someone in their 20s. Just be excellent whatever you're doing, and then other opportunities will emerge.
Yeah. Supposed to extend the analogy, you could say if you bloom where you're planted, somebody may come along and pick you, but you can't do that if you're not blooming, and that's the other opportunities that can kind of come along. Well, Brian, listen, I really appreciate your time. I really appreciate you joining me. If somebody wants to learn more about you, see more of your content, where should they go? Where should they find you? What do you have anything besides our Winsome book to plug here?
Yeah, I think our family of companies speak for itself. But yeah, no, if anybody wants to learn more about kind of what our cultural ethos is, they can always go to the True North Family website. Just Google True North Family of Companies, Winsome, Slipka.com kind of guides people to wherever they need to go as well. But I just appreciate the time, Zach. It's great conversation. Great content. Hopefully a lot of folks will listen to this. And my prayer is just that whoever does listen to this can be impacted favorably from it and do something about it. What can we all do to make our situation better? And it's one of growth, accountability, responsibility, bias for action, be willing to fail, make aggressive mistakes. Right?
Absolutely. All right, that's the pod.